Tender started very simply, like an American kind of folk tune. And I think Damon has been into American folk tunes. He got some big history book and CD or record or whatever. And I had this "Oh My Baby" bit that slotted into it, which kind of made it a little more sophisticated. Well, I gave it another section anyway, and so that slotted in. And then the song took on its own personality and insisted on a gospel choir, and that's how it turned out. So we got these gospel people from Brixton, I think, and spent an afternoon putting that onto this track, and it sounded really nice.
Hello, this is Alex James from Out of Blur, and this is the second track on our new album. It's Bugman, and it's heavy. This is Coffee and TV off our new album, with Damon and Graham singing together.
Swamp Song wasn't originally going to be on the record, but we wanted 13 tracks on the record because it was called 13. And so I think Damon had bigger plans for it, but I think I'd never had a problem with it. I really like it because it's kind of a bit of Screaming Jay Hawkins, and it's very loose because of I like using the slide and all that malarkey. It's quite chaotic, quite demonic, quite primal, all that kind of thing. That's what music's about, innit?
It was an old demo that Damon found in an old box of demos that we did in 1992. And I thought it was really good, so we reworked it.
Well, B.L.U.R.E.M.I, that song is kind of the most up-tempo thing. I suppose it reminds me a bit of 1-2-X Soup.
This started out as a long jam around some ideas, and then when we got some good stuff, we kind of cut it all up again, made it into a kind of song order, and then improvised again over the top of that. It's quite good. I quite like it.
Mellow song, which I had as a sort of a simple chord thing on the guitar for quite a while, and we tried it in a lot of different ways, and it never really sounded as how I sort of originally imagined it. And we did quite a long track with a lot of arrangements, and in the end we took them all away except for the end, and just played it on the guitar, and it's really intimate, I think, and I really like it. We did this song quite a way before we started recording the album, originally for the South Park cartoon, and all these people came over from America after we'd done it and went out with them, and they kept saying, "Oh yeah, we really like the track and it's really interesting," and then didn't hear anything about it, and then they sort of decided not to put it on the record. So I'm quite pleased about that because we really like it, and now it's called Trailerpark. Recorded most of the vocals for this in Iceland, and I remember I was really, really hungover and completely exhausted, and before I did the vocal I went to see Iceland play France in a World Cup qualifier, which was strange because I'd seen France win the World Cup in Paris, and then to see them in this really small little stadium playing the Icelandic team of a few of who I knew, and that was great, and it ended up as a draw, and Iceland scored first, so everyone was in a really good mood, and I went back and I just did the vocal in about 10 minutes and then went out for a drink.
Trimm Trabb. It starts off all soft and ends up nasty. No Distance Left to Run was one of my little favourites because I was really proud of that guitar part, because we did a demo a rough demo of that in Barcelona when we were touring. I think it was Barcelona anyway. I always really liked that. Actually, I want to listen to the demo again because it was a really special little recording. This next song is called, well, it's not a song, it's an instrumental. It's a small piece of music called Optigan 1, because it's played on an instrument called an Optigan, and it's the first thing that we played on it, or Damon played on it. Enjoy that.
Way that we've always worked, you know, Damon will come along with a sort of noodle and a hum, and we'll all try and make it into our song. The best songs, it's always, you know, the four of us all doing our thing in our own corner, sounding nice together. And then it all went into computers. There's been amazing developments in recording technology over the last year or so. It's ridiculous what you can do with pieces of sound. You know, it's makes it a lot easier to make records, basically.
The whole thing started in our Studio 13, which is this really small place on a kind of industrial complex near where I live, and it's a nice vibe there. And we just in end of the summer we just went in there with William, recorded everything, and I sort of played the songs really for the first time to everyone, my demos. There was no order to it. It was completely chaotic, and it's whatever. Any day there was no right, we're going to finish this off. It was like, oh, this is something new, let's just do that. And he just took back, you know, hours and hours and hours of sort of half-finished songs, jams, ideas, and we just started to put the thing together in another studio. So it was completely different. I mean, usually we've always, at least to a greater extent, just worked out a song and then gone in there and played it pretty much how we'd worked it out, you know. So the answer is completely. Sounded a lot more like how we've always sounded when we've been rehearsing and doing demos.
I saw an interview with Madonna, and she expressed this as well, that it's kind of like making a film, and there's these scenes, and you don't really know what they mean. You just know how to do the scenes because you know how to play your instrument, and you're kind of bouncing off each other or whatever musically. But it's only really toward the end you actually get the gist of the whole picture or whatever.
It was a lot more fun, really. Making records has tended to be very satisfying, but not much fun for me, because everything's been extremely structured. I suppose there hasn't been that much room for improvisation. We've tended to know pretty much what we were doing before we went in. This was a much less structured session. We kind of went in with the loosest of ideas, really kind of figured things out on the fly. And even then, you know, the creative process didn't finish. But you know, when we put our instruments down, we'd still ended up with a sequence of jams and kind of ideas that needed editing into place afterwards. So yeah, it was quite a different way of working, really. I played less but better, I think. Yeah, I definitely felt less under pressure. So I think that paid dividends for me. So I didn't kind of splurge everything down onto tape, but it's a lot more selective as what I did.
Well, the big thing about this record was having a new producer, which is makes you quite apprehensive, I think. You know, we'd had a long relationship with Stephen Street, and you know, developed a lot of trust and understanding, you know, and that kind of in a studio, you know, you just need a producer who can get the best out of you or whatever.
I would always approach working with a new man, a producer or something, with some trepidation, I guess, because I kind of believe in the better the devil you know sort of thing, which is probably a little unadventurous. I had no idea how he would work, but I like the idea of crossing, of a kind of a crossbreed of techno and a kind of really heavy music, like I've been interested in recently, sort of, and kind of creating a death metal sort of techno sort of thing. I thought that might be quite interesting, and with someone like William Orbit's background, I knew that might be, he's obviously kind of crazy about stuff that rocks or stuff that's extreme or something that's kind of. I knew he'd have a kind of perverseness about his attitude to music, which I think I have. And actually working with him, it was very different from Stephen Street, I guess, because I think he only told me to tune my guitar twice, which I really liked, because I always used to scare Stephen and say, I'm going to tune my guitar once at the beginning of recording and that's it. And then whatever happens to it after that, that's what happens. But with him, he left it up to me. So he kind of beat me in that way. He kind of seemed less of a grown-up. He seemed more like an 8-year-old in an adult's body kind of thing. He seemed very excited about everything, very excited about ridiculous sounds, and he just had fun. You could really tell that he was having fun.
I mean, Stephen was great. Stephen Street, who we've done most of the other records with, is an absolutely genius producer, but he does tend to work in a very structured way. And that's really the only way we've ever worked in the past. So, we had no idea how to work in the other way. So when William came along, we just said, just do whatever you want, it'll be fine. And just kind of set the tape rolling, and just kind of mopped up ideas as they happened.
So, it was just like lots of walls were knocked down, and it was just innate. Having somebody new there meant that it was kind of like a clean sheet, there was no. I mean, it came together with William really well.
He did some remixes for us off his own back. He just sort of said, because he knew Andy Ross from Food Records, and he really took the initiative himself. And when we heard them, they were very different. And we just thought, well, this is the man to give us the space which we, have so need, and really been trying to find. The songs I'd written just really felt like nothing else I'd ever written before, and it just made perfect sense to me, because I felt there was a big change that was happening. You live or die by the spontaneity of the sound, and it keeps it very spontaneous.
I think so. It will be a challenge, but I think it's so great to listen to. There's so much happening, but it's very selective at the same time. There's nothing that isn't really needed on there sound-wise. It's creating, when it's chaotic, it needs to be. So I think listening to it is quite an experience. And the only way I can get to do that is just to listen to it through other people. I've just had some visitors, and I was playing them it. And listening to their reactions and things like that. But I can't actually experience it in that way myself properly. Yeah, it's like definitely a bit of a headphones record. It'll be a challenge, but a nice one. It's not going to be like a struggle, I don't think.
We've always said, that we kind of, you've got to let the song speak for itself, you've got to kind of follow what the song wants to do. Yeah, even more so in this case anyway. I think even, the less we tried to force it, the more things just tended to present themselves and make themselves obvious. People do tend to find our records quite difficult, I think. I mean, even the records now that are seen as relatively commercial, Park Life, at the time they came out, they were kind of extremely left field, going against the grain of what everybody else was doing. It'd be very boring if we put out records and people didn't find them difficult, I think. Well, we find them difficult to make, so you're going to find them difficult to listen to. There's still the indefinable us part of it, and then there's the kind of, we're moving on and doing something else part.
I'd never really wanted to make challenging music, I think Graham and Damon have got this thing about, I just want to make kind of bubblegum for the ears. I think I'm a pop junkie. I mean, we're probably the only band that have been putting records out since 1990 who formed around that time, who's survived completely intact. It's, you go into a studio and see what happens, and the more time you spend doing that, the more adept at it you become. I'm amazed, there's no doubt that throughout the last 10 years we've improved, but and it's just surprising to me that more bands don't. Most bands seem to get worse.
I think any band has to replicate, but only the kind of essence, everything else, and hopefully the essence will come out more and more, and that's certainly what seems to be happening with us. So I think it definitely travels into quite dark recesses, but it's still in kind of one piece at the end, and optimistic. It's weathered, but it's most cathartic thing I've ever done. It's a whole voyage of new things. Life changes. My life's changed, and I'm most definitely broadening my horizons. So this is just this was kind of the catalyst for all of that happening in a way. The only reason anyone would be mad enough to stay in a band this long and subject themselves to sort of the routines and the timetables and the schedules and everything, as if at the end of everything you've got something which you really feel you can carry for the rest of your life as it's the only reason. I mean, none of us would put up with each other if we weren't satisfying each other's desire to make good work.